Good afternoon and welcome to another seminar in the Curated Culture series. Curating Culture is a production of the African Caribbean Institute of Jamaica, Jamaica Memory Bank. I'm your moderator, Georgette McGlashan Miller, and today it is my pleasure to introduce to you Dr. Joseph T. Farquharson, who will lead us into an exploration of the Jamaican language. Dr. Joseph Farquharson is a senior lecturer in linguistics at the University of the West Indies, Mona. He holds a BA in Linguistics and Spanish and a PhD in Linguistics from UWI. He also holds an MPhil in European Literature from the University of Cambridge. He has been serving as the coordinator of the Jamaican Language Unit since August 2019 and is currently a member of the Communications and Information Advisory Committee of the Jamaican National Commission for UNESCO and the convener of the subject panel for Cape Communication Studies. His topic today is Words Live Like People Do, an exploration of African words in Jamaican language. So without further ado, let us welcome Dr. Joseph T. Farquharson.
Okay, thank you, Georgette. So words live like people do. So first and foremost, thanks to the African Caribbean Institute of Jamaica for inviting me to speak on this topic, which is near and dear to me. Also, thanks to all the people who have joined online to listen, and also to those who will pick this up later on. So I'm a lover of words. I have had a special relationship with words for a very long time, and as an introvert, I have spent more time with words than I have with people. Words have treated me well, people sometime-ish. This, I believe, makes me more qualified to talk about words than to talk about people. Although most would agree that chatting people is far more interesting, I spent most of my days, my 10 years of my life between UWI Mona and the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology doing in-depth research on African words in the Jamaican language. These are the words I would like to spend these few minutes chatting about. It is their life stories that I have come to chat today. Among several other things, my PhD work gave me practical training as an etymologist. Etymology is the scientific study of the history of words, applying the tools of historical linguistics and its reliance on advances in phonology, morphology, syntax, semantics, and pragmatics to solve questions of origin and development. But between my pastime of observing people and studying words, I have come to realize that they are not so very different. Both words and people have lives. Some live in obscurity and others live flashy lives, always the hot topic of their day. Therefore, the etymologist and the biographer share much in common because both engage in writing life stories. But whereas the biographer has a bias to people who lead very public, sometimes flashy lives, the etymologist is more egalitarian, more permissive, and is likely to research and write the biography of words that very few people would agree are important. This has been my experience with the words in our language that are highly likely to be of African provenance. Because of how complicated colonialism has caused our history and link to Africa to become, many people dismiss African-derived words as uninteresting and as things that should be forgotten. It is our duty to reclaim the space to help them live on, at least through documentation. Singer, songwriter, and record producer Johnny Bristol, who in 1974 released the song Memories Don't Leave Like People Do, provide the inspiration for a part of my title today. That song, Memories Don't Leave Like People Do, is one of the songs on his album, Hang On In There Baby. The song was covered by Tom Jones in 1975 And then some 2 decades after, similar words showed up in Beenie Man's song Memories. And Bristol's leave had shapeshifted into live in Beenie Man's song. So memories don't live like people do. Note though that the word in focus here was always phonologically ambiguous in the versions of both Johnny Bristol and Tom Jones. And Beenie Man exploited this ambiguity for a different spin on things. So while I agree with Beenie that memories don't live like people do, I am proposing that words live like people do. Words come into existence, that is, they are born. They are prepared for use in certain social situations, that's like socialization. They interact with other words, that's in the same way we socialize. They reflect our worldview, philosophy. They may live most or all of their lives in obscurity or in the limelight, and they eventually die, just like we do. Although those who get the best care from the community, I should say, live the longest life. So some words will stick around because they get the love and attention from members of the community. It is the role of the etymologist, though, as a biographer, to research, uncover, and document these lives. And this is what I have attempted to do. This talk draws on work that I did for my PhD many years ago, but it also includes work I am currently engaged in as I prepare the Dictionary of African Words in Jamaican and Jamaican English, which I'm calling Dawijaje for short, because it sounds very African. Dawijaje is a dictionary on historical principles documenting the life and times of African words in our speech. Let me give my first example of how words remind me of people. It is very easy for us to fall into the trap of measuring impact based on the number of people who remember us and for how long we are remembered after we pass off the scene. However, impact is better measured by the importance of what you do while you're around and the importance you have to the people closest to you. I think in this way, it helps us to revalue human life. This reminds me of the word baah, which is a word I am guessing nobody in the audience knows. As far as I'm aware, it was recorded only once. That is, by the 18th century historian Edward Long in volume 2 of his book, The History of Jamaica. Long records it with the meaning bullock. However, I suspect that he may have limited it to bullock because a male bovine was pointed out to him. So somebody shows him a male bovine and says baah, and he thinks, okay, baah means bullock. It comes from the Tiv language spoken in modern-day Nigeria, where it means cow or bull. You may ask, why spend time on this solitary Tiv word that has been obsolete in Jamaica probably for 3 centuries? Why is it important? Why give space to it as opposed to languages like Akan that are mass contributors to the Jamaican language? We value people based not on how much they can contribute, at least we should value them not on the basis of how much they can contribute to us, but on the basis of their intrinsic value as human beings. When we approach it from that angle, we start appreciating words and people who are with us even for a very short time. The presence of baah gives us very important information on the history of the peopling of Jamaica through forced migration. So we have to look into the life of another obscure word in Jamaican, a duppy. Frederick Cassidy and Robert LePage in their Dictionary of Jamaican English have only one piece of evidence for this word. It was collected in a dialect word competition that the Gleaner ran in 1943 and came from a contestant in Manchester who defined a duppy as a little hairy creature said to live in the bush. By the way, the word also shows up in Guyana. No imagination is required to link this hairy bush-dwelling creature with the Akan Adope and Gan Adope, meaning ape and chimpanzee. But what do these primates have to do with ghosts? Zimmerman, who in his dictionary from 1858 tells us that Gan Adope is a chimpanzee related to Asamanukpa, chimpanzee living on the islands of the River Volta, where the Sisai or ghosts are said to have their towns. This demonstrates that words too need to be careful of the company they keep, because the Adope, meaning ape, is associated with the place that is believed to be the home of ghosts or spirits. Over time, it came to mean ghost. Be careful of the friends you keep. That Jamaican duppy does not look exactly like its West African source word, can be attributed to the very common process of aphoresis, which is the loss of a sound from the beginning of a word. Example, amongst becoming monks, about becoming bout, and iguana becoming guana. So a duppy becomes duppy. Some people have suffered wrongful accusations, and people of African descent have a lot of experience in being blamed for things they had no hand in. Words are no different. In linguistics, we refer to something called folk etymology, where a speaker meets a word and works out a history for that word based on something about it that triggers a memory or association. This is what Jamaicans have done with a word such as attaclaps, meaning retribution or comeuppance, when they spell it in ways that suggest that the first part derives from either hotter, so they'll spell it H-O-T-T-E-R or H-O-T-T-A or H-A-T-T-A, or auto, so I've seen autoclaps. However, attaclaps comes from dialects of English where the word is afterclaps. This etymology starts to make more sense when you consider that ata or atta are common ways of pronouncing after in Jamaican, as in ata me never know, or atabirth for the afterbirth, and so on. Many African words have been likewise wrongly accused, or probably more appropriately assigned wrong paternity to exploit a more familiar scenario. For example, words like kwashi, a stupid person, kwaku, a rough, uncultured person, and kwau, one from the remote country parts, were generally thought to be derived from Akan day names. A lot of people would know Kwashi, Kwashiba, Kwabena, etc. Those are day names in Akan which were retained in Jamaica. And it is believed that these words came from the day names through a process of pejoration. This seemed perfectly logical in a country where things African have been denigrated for a very long time. However, my work revealed that the word kwashi, meaning a stupid person, was better linked with okwashea from the Fante dialect of Akan, where it means fool, idiot, ignorant or stupid person, silly fellow. Kwao, meaning country bumpkin, from the word okwae, that's in the Aquapem dialect of Akan, which means forest, wood or thicket, the wooded inland country or bush country. And kwaku, meaning a rough, uncultured person, could better be linked to Aquapem okwaku, a species of monkey. This is not to deny that the day names that are phonologically close have not played any role in the development or upbringing of these jackets, but we now know who the sperm donors are. Sometimes people look alike. I have seen people in Ghana who look like Jamaican or Guyanese people I know. The Germans have a term for this, doppelganger, which English borrowed as doppelganger. And that word means a double of a living person. This phenomenon reminds me of the doublets we find in Jamaica's African vocabulary. Here, I am not talking about words that look the same on the surface, but cases in which we have taken words from two separate languages to name the same thing. And I think there's even a case where we took two separate words from the same language for the same thing. To illustrate this, we have duppy from Akan and Ga existing beside Jombi, which derives from Kikongo and Kimbundu. Kikongo and Kimbundu are spoken in West Central Africa. There's Jamaican bufutu, meaning fat, oafish, stupid, which comes from Kikongo and Kimbundu, existing alongside Wagati, which is highly likely to be related to Yoruba Waga Waga, clumsy, awkward in shape or motion, and Nupe Waga, meaning large. Note that the shape of Jamaican Wagati has been influenced by its friend Bufutu, that has a variant form Bufuti. So that Bufuti then influenced the creation of Wagati. There's also Tiv Bois, and I think I was looking for a Kikongo word, which also means cow. But there's Jonkoto, meaning to squat, which comes from Mandinka and Maninkakan, existing beside Sankuku from Kikongo and Butu from the Tano languages Akan, Gwang, and Nzema. All of those mean to squat, meaning to crouch on your legs. Please note that that last word Butu is not the same as Butu, meaning crass, boorish, low class, or a stupid person. It comes from an Ijo word meaning ignorant or stupid. We have to consider that the majority of African words which were used in Jamaica have not survived into the 21st century. And of the 289 words that my doctoral work assigned secure etymologies, many of them are only known from historical records. They are no longer in active use, and many are not even remembered. This I believe to be the case for words like unguru, an albino, or bobo, meaning pretty or a child's dress, boto, to stoop, and kakadewi, which is some unidentified bird, and so on and so forth. In this regard, words are very much like people. Think about how many of the 117 billion people who have ever lived on earth you know or remember. So many people have come, lived their lives, and passed off the scene without even being a footnote to history. The loss of African words is due not only to colonialism, slavery, and their effects, but also to a very normal phenomenon which has to do with domains of usage and frequency. What I mean to highlight is that the fate of many African words had already been sealed before Africans were taken from the continent. We can use as an example the word sketel, which is not an African-derived word as far as I know. But sketel was very common in the 1990s. I expect most of you, or I suspect that most of you know it and have used it before, but you have not used it 5 times in the past year or 20 times in the past 5 years. These are the words normally appendix with the statement, a long time in a year nobody used that word there, or my granny used to use that word there. Languages also reflect the preoccupation of the people who speak them. And so we get multiple words from African languages for the vagina, but nary a word for the penis. So we find words such as bombo, chocho, pum pum, punash, punu, and tuni. Several of these have spin-offs in nash, puninash, chun chun, tun tun, zoom zoom. You will notice that reduplication or repetition is very common in this corner of the lexicon. Words, as I have pointed out before, provide a window on how people view the word. the world. For example, one of the words for vagina, that is pum pum, comes from an Akan word which means swollen. This reveals the characteristic of the thing that stands out for the speakers. And so a lot of Jamaican men will talk about the buff. Another Akan-derived word, chocho, points to the shape of the thing. And dindi, as in dindi okro, talks about texture. Dindi only occurs in the name of the variety of okra, but it comes from a Kikonga word meaning vagina. We do not have any evidence of the word dindi by itself meaning vagina. However, its association with okra associates it with sliminess. This echoes the celebrated glimity and glamity of 90s dancehall music. Like in several other cultures around the world, there's an unfortunate association in Jamaica between fatness, clumsiness, and stupidity. But there's much ambiguity in popular culture about fatness, especially with regard to plus-size women. So we have Shaggy's command to women in his 1991 song Mampi to jump and spread out, you know, Mampi. Mampi being a Kikonga-derived word for a fat person. Shaggy's song or use of the word Mampi can be contrasted with Gregory Peck's oversized Mampi, which praises fat women, but not in a way that is unproblematic. Knowing that in many African societies, fatness is seen as a sign of prosperity, I blamed the negative attitudes to fatness to modern Anglo-American culture that had placed thinness on a pedestal as one of the indicators of beauty. However, I look at my list of African words rubbish that conclusion, seeing that over and over, words derived from Africa that speak to large size generally also carry either denotative or connotative senses related to clumsiness, stupidity, or the absence of shape or beauty. Here I could mention bogro, bogro bogro, buduf baf, bufro bufro, busu busu, mampi, wagati, waga waga. Many people would take this as an opportunity to blame the language and use it as another reason why the Jamaican language is bad. However, in this regard, words live how people do, reflecting their perspectives on life, their biases. Carlin Cooper reminds us that a we are use language and a language are use we. Words, like people, gain value by being actively used. But in the same way that people have to adapt to changing technologies, language change with changes in technology. Unfortunately, this means loss of some words that are associated with technology that is old and or no longer widespread. For example, practically every Jamaican knows the word bami and the food items that the word refers to. But I would hazard that the majority of Jamaicans do not know a thing called bami iron or a bami ring, because although they know and or eat the food, they have not had to concern themselves with the technology that produces the food. These words are probably now restricted to the people who make bami professionally and are likely to fade even further into the background as bami production is taken over by large companies using more industrial technology. Although working out the etymologies of the words that had been assigned African origin represented much of the work in my doctoral work, the 505 etymological analyses which helped to identify 289 secure Africanisms got relegated to an appendix to the thesis, which ran for roughly 120 pages. Dr. Jeanette Alsop had suggested that these analyses be published as a dictionary, but I have resisted that because I thought that only 289 African words sounded like a story of defeat, a story which spoke more of loss than survival. However, about 5 years after the thesis had been submitted, it dawned on me that Africa was doing in the lexicon what it was doing in every other facet of Jamaican life, such as food, music, religion, visual arts, storytelling, and proverbs. It was hiding in plain sight, surviving by mixing, syncretizing, and creating new and interesting stuff. This led the project that I did not want to do to evolve into an exciting one which records not just African words and morphemes taken directly from African languages, but also all of the derivations that those words have entered into over the past centuries. So if we consider the word Jumbi meaning ghost, things look dismal if we take just Jumbi on its own. But the word Jumbi has lived on in several compounds, such as Jumbi Chocho, for what is known otherwise as duck apple, Jumbi Man, a male specialist in the ritual practices associated with Obia, and Jumbi Tongue, the place where ghosts or spirits live. A more extreme case is provided by the word duppy, which has about 60 derivatives, and I'll list out some of them, so permit me. But I think you need to hear them to just understand what I went through as I realized that Africa had lived on in its ability to mix and mingle with other words. So we have duppy umbrella, duppy box, duppy bands, duppy bat, duppy baby, duppy bickle, duppy bud, duppy cherry, duppy tree, duppy truck, duppy chocho, duppy dog, duppy danny nigger, duppy figure stick, duppy fifi, duppy fly trap, duppy gun, duppy girl, duppy gal, duppy kalalu, duppy kankara, duppy cotton, duppy ketcha, duppy cup, duppy cucumber, duppy coconut, duppy calf, duppy cap, duppy man, duppy mecca, duppy melon, duppy up, duppy house, duppy pop gun, duppy pison, duppy peas, duppy picnic, duppy pinda, duppy pumpkin, duppy puss, duppy riding horse, duppy show, duppy sickness, duppy slimy pear, duppy soursop leaf tea, duppy story, duppy tomatoes, duppy tomato, duppy woman, duppy yard, baby duppy, picnic duppy, man duppy, woman duppy, coolie duppy. And I did that to show you how much there is if we change our perspective. And these do not even include phrasal idioms such as set duppy pan, which means to use supernatural means to use a ghost to haunt someone, or the slang expression mecca duppy, which means to kill someone. Here we could cue Bounty Killer's song Just Mecca Duppy. But even then, we haven't even scratched the surface if we have not taken into consideration the many shades and meaning and usage that the word duppy itself has taken on in Jamaica, such as its use as a verb, which means to murder. For example, in Skeng's song Duppy Dem, where he DJs Duppy Mana Duppy Walla Dem, Guns Out and Beer Yeng Yeng. Most people will tell you that duppy means ghost, but it also means cadaver or dead body, and it can also be used to refer to something mysterious, such as a duppy budget or a despicable person. That boy, they are real duppy. That last sense is equivalent to the meaning of duppy bat, which used to only refer to the black witch moth Ascalapha odorata, but can now refer to a stupid person or to a despicable person. The latter meaning is the one intended in Diablo's song Duppy Bat, where he chants at the opening, Spain town, tell some duppy bat when them see me, no fi chat. Recently, I was informed by a member of my Dictionary of the Jamaican Language team that duppy can also now mean something like soul. So if you kill somebody, you can say them duppy bat, meaning you see their soul. The Dictionary of the Jamaican Language, DJL, is sponsored by Chase Fund. That's another important piece of work that is documenting the rich lexical history of our language. So we've been talking about words and the lives of words, but I hope you've realized that this is as much about people as it is about words. Words are important only if the people who use those words are important. As a post-colonial society, we're at risk of losing a lot of our words, not because of the very natural process that takes place in all languages, where words pass out of use, but because we have been told that our words are bad and should be abandoned in favor of other people's words. We have to push back against any attempt that seeks to strip us of our sense of self by stripping us of our language. In the same way that we do not all have to be doctors to care for those we love, we do not all have to be etymologists to care for the words we love. Each person can play a role in keeping these African words in circulation or in memory, either by using them in our groups or using them with children. Otherwise, we lose our culture. A case in point is the slow disappearance of Anansi stories. Anansi is another African word, and we got both Anansi referring to the personage we find in Anansi stories, the character in Anansi stories, as well as Anansi meaning spider. And I don't think a lot of persons use Anansi anymore to mean spider. They use the English word spider. So culture is dying. But what we have done in rejecting and forgetting Anansi stories, especially as we are in hot pursuit of other people's fables, for example, the repurposing of Norse, Greek, and Roman mythology through DC and Marvel Comics, is that we have essentially taken over other people's ancient Anansi stories and, followed them instead of our own. What they did was to take their stories and repurpose them for the 20th and 21st century. Told them in ways that kept pace with technology, with life in the 20th and 21st centuries. We did the opposite. We abandoned our own stories because we thought they were not fit for modern life. So it will require brave poets, novelists, playwrights, screenwriters, essayists, film producers who are not afraid of writing for us. So can you imagine if Louise Bennett had said, but oh no, people won't be able to read my poetry. No. Miss Lou saw herself as writing for Jamaicans. And what that has done is that many people beyond Jamaican shores have become interested in her work. And people are reading and studying her works beyond Jamaica. As I close, permit me to point out that words seem so much like people because they are the product of human society. All thriving human societies build their foundation on the past, the tradition of their ancestors. It requires a rethinking of the past, a refashioning to build the present and future that they desire. Our task then is, rather than discarding Africa, is to see how we can refashion what our ancestors left us to build the kind of present and future that validate us. Thank you.
Well, certainly, that was more than a treat. Those were a lot of words. I mean, the syncretizing of the African words, it's almost like it impregnates the English words and born on its words.
And yes,
Since we're talking about words like people. But I'm checking in the chat and I expected these comments, especially about Jamaican curse words, that seem to have the most impact. At the start of the lecture, you spoke about words and their impact that determine how long they will live. And I see where the curse words, and I know as linguists we don't say bad words, have outlasted and they have outlived many of the words. So outside of impact, why is that?
Okay, so and now I'll use bad word just to appropriate a fuller meaning. So bad word turn like bad man. Yeah? That for years, for decades after, we remember the bad man. So if you think about, a lot of us might have heard about Reagan, etc., was immortalized in The Harder They Come, etc. And so it's this character who created a stir for a while, when they were alive, whose name lives on. And most people have forgotten Reagan, forgotten who he was, etc. But we still remember the name. Now, in the same way, because these words, the impact of the word or words is heavy, and we pull them out just like a gun in moments where we want to make the most impact. They have lived on. And despite what colonial powers or what other powers, what church powers, religious powers have tried to do, they live on. And they live on because there is still use for them. Peter Tosh has a song, and I don't think I need to repeat the name of the song or the most popular word or common word in that song. And a lot of people got up in arms about the word that Tosh used and why he would have used those words. And the thing is that he used it for the effect it would cause. But then people now get caught up with, why did he use that word? As opposed to why was there a need for him to use the word? He used the word because he wanted to highlight the plight of Black people, especially poor Black people. And he knew and understood the effects that it would have. Even if people were going to get caught up in the word, it would also highlight in an indirect way the plight of people. So yes, bad words have lived on. And again, they sting more because they speak to, we understand the full impact of the words. And so even where there are English swear words that we use, we understand what the Jamaican ones mean and their full impact. And I think that's why they have survived, because their work is not yet done.
And we notice also that these bad words, though they are unique to Jamaica, they are not only carried overseas by the diaspora, but even impacting and influencing the continent.
Okay.
A kind of conversation where we have Africans using Jamaican bad words. So that's a full circle life there.
Yeah, so, giving back in a sense. I should point out that, for the words, so some of them were made swear words in Jamaica, but the words themselves are not necessarily limited to Jamaica. So Jamaica is not the only Caribbean territory where you find these words, meaning vagina, etc. But we seem to have done something interesting with them, and then that has been given back. And it's a part of that whole exchange that is taking place in the Atlantic region. where we have kind of taken words from Africa and think of it almost like an industrial process where Africa gives us the raw material and we make something new out of it and we give it to other places, Africa being one of those places. So I shared a music video with somebody this morning, which is, and actually I think I was looking up, I was trying to fine tune my study on my talk, that part on duppy bat, I think it was, or was it Mampi? Mampi. It was Mampi. And came across this Ghanaian artist called Vibrant Fire. And his entire song, Mampi, was in the Jamaican language. This is a Ghanaian born, as far as I know. I need to do more research on Vibrant Fire. Completely in Jamaican. And so it's that whole transatlantic link where there's this common product language that we borrow from each other, make new things, and then share again with each other.
Yeah. So another question in the comments is asking about the duplication of the words. So, as you know, I teach Jamaican to foreigners and Jamaicans and those who are interested to learn to read and write. And one of the things we always tell our students, one way to identify African words is the duplication. Why is that? Explain some more about that, because is it that all duplication represent Africa, or it's something that we've just adopted?
Okay, so I wouldn't say all duplicated, repeated words, or you can use them to say Africa, but it reflects an African pattern within the language. Now, English does use reduplication, but how English uses reduplication is different from the patterns we find in Africa. So you do find things like harum scarum, helter skelter, pitter patter in English, but the patterns we find in Jamaican and languages like Jamaican, like Trinidadian English Creole, Guyanese English Creole or Guyanese Creolese, Belizean, etc., are very much like the patterns we find in many African languages. Now, we do have reduplicated words that come directly from Africa. So if you think about a word like poto poto for mud or muddy, nyaka nyaka, saka saka, those are taken directly from Africa. And these no doubt gave rise to a very productive pattern of forming words, and that would now lead into words like licky licky, etc. I should point out, showing you how this thing works. So we have the African-derived word nyam, meaning to eat, coming from Wolof. And we have the word nyam nyam, which a lot of Jamaicans might not know now, but the word nyam nyam is an old word which means food. And this reflects a pattern of a verb being repeated or reduplicated to form a noun. So the verb nyam being reduplicated nyam nyam to form a noun, food. But that has been extended in Jamaican, so you get bon bon to mean that thing you have at the bottom of the pot when you burn rice, when you cook rice, and the bottom catch. Yeah? Plus other words formed in that way. So it's the pattern that is taken over. So you do have reduplicated words that come from Africa, but then you have English words that are then made to behave in African ways. And so now you get your bad, bad, sick, sick, and then moving on to sicky, sicky, licky, licky, nyami, nyami, etc.
But we find that it's the Jamaicans or it's the African descendants that are speaking these English words in the African pattern.
Yeah, so what they do, they take the English word and cut it for fit for them own talking, as Miss Lou would say, which is something that happens regularly in language contact. So it is typical in language contact situations when people come together who speak different languages, that the language that I speak originally, when I try to learn your language, then I will change up your language in order to fit patterns in my language. And in that way, we create something new and interesting. So it's very typical.
The same thing that people do.
Same thing that people do.
We
mix and we mingle.
Exactly. So you spoke about Dawijaje. That's the name of the dictionary. How soon can we expect that to come out?
I'm surprised you remember the name, Dawijaje. So Dawijaje, short for Dictionary of African Words in Jamaican and Jamaican English. And I'd really wrapped my brain for months, even years, to work out what would I call this thing. Because it doesn't only have the African words, it also has the words created using African words in it. I have been working on it, I should say, forever, for 20 years. So for as long as I have been interested in words, I think I have been working on this. But more earnestly over the past 3 to 4 years. And now I'm actually devoting time to this particular project. It has now reached about 179 manuscript pages, so well advanced. And my plan was to complete it by the end of this year, but the word surprised me, because the moment I thought I have seen all of the words, more words keep popping up, and so it gets longer. And two, it's not just about the words, but the evidence for the words. It's a dictionary on historical principles. So it has quotations from published words, from songs, lots of songs, in it to provide evidence of the use of the words. But it's also showing how those words have changed over time. And I have to put in the etymologies, the history of the words, where they come from, how they were formed, etc. So it's a lot of work. I do plan, though, to wrap it up by the end of the academic year. So whether it maga come July or thereabout next year, it will have to pop off. Otherwise,
series. Can just give us our first series.
A first series or first edition.
In other words, who knows what kind of children they will produce?
Or what we do an anniversary every year.
Exactly.
So we have the big wedding come next year. But you realize that next year it should be sent to the publisher. There's no telling how long it's going to take them to format and so on. And formatting a dictionary takes a whole lot more time than formatting a regular work.
Well, we will certainly look out for Dawijaje. And I mean, it's an acronym, although it's a word. But it does sound African, for the little I know about Africa. So, Dr. Joseph T. Farquharson, it's certainly been a pleasure having you with us today at the African Caribbean Institute of Jamaica.
Thank you.
And to our audience online, we thank you very much for staying with us. You know, we at the ACIJ are very appreciative of that. But we still invite you to come and visit us at 12 to 14 Ocean Boulevard, downtown, where you can access our library and access more information about Jamaican language. Also, we are inviting you to visit us on social media at acij-ioj.org.jm or on Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram at ACIJJMB. We are also inviting you to our last Sunday activity, which will be this November 26th. And we are hosting a revival exhibition, so do come out with your friends and your family, and we are looking forward to see you. Until next year, when we have our next Curating Culture, let us be the first at ACIJ to wish you a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy Kwanzaa when it comes, and we will see you January the 26th for our next session. Sorry, that's January the 7th for our next seminar series in Curating Culture, where we curate to educate.